So, Professor, man, thanks so much for coming back. This is an episode so many people have been waiting on, specifically because a lot of people in the West are missing context around Congo, and Congo is such a hard topic because it's shrouded in the mystery of multinational corporations, and you stated a little bit earlier about there being a lack of government. Can you speak a little bit about what you mean by Congo has no government?
I mean, thank you very much and welcome. The Congo has been a problem for a long, long time. In fact, since independence, Congo has never been stable because remember at independence, the government was under two leaders, a prime minister and a president. Kasavumbu and Patrice Lumumba and the West and the East were supporting one or the other, and sometimes they would just interchange.
Right.
And as a result of this, there has never been a stable government, one that can even just secure its territories. And because of that, and because of its enormous wealth in minerals and other resources, there has been a lot of external interest and external influence in the Congo. If we drove a little bit into history, the only UN Secretary General to die in office died in the Congo,
Right.
trying to resolve the same problems that are facing Congo even today.
Those problems, especially being the multinational corporations, right? Um, if
Yep.
Congo is this mineral rich, they also don't have a government to protect themselves, right? Then how does the structure of multinational corporations, how are they able to just take over?
They are not able to take over. It's just like the Wild West in the US. Anybody who has a fast horse, anybody who has a small, strong militia would just claim a piece of the Wild West and control it. The Congo is that Wild West, but Wild West millions of times richer. And therefore, it is able to attract multinational corporations that are very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It is able to attract other operatives that are strong mercenaries that have strong military, and that can buy practically any kind of security agent and security agency, including America's Green Berets, America's Special Forces, the Mossad. When they retire or when they are made to retire, many of them begin operating in the Congo.
Wow. Wow. So you said these mercenaries are hired when they retire. That there was a specific group, I think it was called the Wagner Group. Um, what is the Wagner Group? They had ties to the Soviets, right?
Well, even today, the Wagner Group is basically just the clandestine arm of Putin.
Mm.
So, because of the influence of the West in Africa, it was very hard for the Russians and East Europeans to have a foothold directly, as in government to government. So to camouflage their influence, they had to offer protection to certain African leaders. And the form in which they offered this was through the Wagner Group, that is from Russia, and of course the executive outcomes from the West, mainly America and UK. So these militia groups are operating probably in every territory in Africa.
So are you saying that Putin has an arm in Congo militarily that is aiding interests of all, larger nations when it comes to mineral, like uptake by them?
See, the fact that you are paying mercenaries to do your bidding doesn't mean you own them. The same mercenaries could be owned by your adversary and another one and another one. Remember, that is their business. And like
Right.
every other business person, they maximize their returns by getting more clients and more customers.
Right.
So the Wagner Group could still be acting on behalf or protecting interests that are even directly opposed to the Russians. But as long as they protect, they do what the Russians want, then Russia doesn't care, or even if it did it, it would have nothing to do with them if they decided to do something else.
Wow. So the almost altruistic actions that Russia is taking in a place like Burkina Faso or the just with the Sahel states in general, and even in the past with I think it was Angola, but are, is this the showing of the two-facedness? Is Russia doing this negatively, um, or is it still that net neutrality?
What neutrality?
Because you're saying again don't mercenaries are no longer soldiers, right? So they're not tied to a nation state, they're tied to their pockets. But you
They're
said
tied to their pockets.
Putin is pretty much the arm of the Wagner group, right?
But then you see there is Putin, and there is Putin, the head of the Russian Federation, and there is Putin, who is also a mercenary.
Former KGB, right.
Former KGB, exactly. So which Putin are you talking about?
Man, wow. Okay.
I mean, this is a Putin who is manipulating elections. So there are so many faces of this mercenary, as there are many faces of the people who quote unquote control them.
So how is it possible then, with this context, how should not only should a viewer understand Congo, but how would you move Congo forward if you were the leader of Congo?
I would not want to be a leader of Congo even if I was given half of the minerals, because you are bound to die.
Mm.
It's like the movie I watched in the mid-80s, The Devil's Alternative. Whichever side you pick, men are bound to die. Whichever side you pick in the Congo, you're likely to be exploited.
Wow.
And if you don't play well, you are likely to die. And you are likely to be replaced, irrespective of who is guarding you. Because there's always somebody who is willing to pay more than you are.
You compared it to Manifest Destiny in America, right? And the Wild Wild West as they were expanding.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Congo is it's a bit different, right? Especially because considering Manifest Destiny um ended up blossoming into a nation that ended up becoming pretty organized. Do you see a future as such for Congo? And how can Congo move forward from where it's at to maybe even becoming a real power in Africa since it has so many minerals?
20 years ago, if you had said China will be what it is today, people would have laughed at you.
Mm.
You never know about tomorrow. And I never engage in the business of predictions.
No, I'm not asking the
Unless,
business of prediction. I'm saying from a political scientist perspective, what strategy with your understanding of the context would again, I asked you what would you do if you were the leader, not if you wanted to be, but if you could, have a supreme power over Congo, what would be a great step in the right direction towards gaining a little bit more control over the minerals? Would it be getting the government, or would it be educating the people? What would it be?
Honestly, right now, there is hardly anything that is feasible that can be done to change it.
Wow.
Because of the entrenched interests. Before you even start establishing yourself, you'll be eliminated. Because there's so much proliferation of arms, And there's so much entrenched interest that before you overthrow one, you see, unless now you can imagine a situation where China becomes the new hegemon, and China decides, now that I control the place, why can't I just establish a legitimacy and do legitimate business with a strong Congolese government? But then somebody will ask, they already control the minerals. Why would they want to change that?
Wow.
If you wanted to use another superpower to gain power and control Congo, what will you do with the Chinese interests? What would you do with the Soviet interests? What will you do to the mercenaries who already are a government there? There are so many factors that you must control, and many of them are not controllable. Because the moment you show one face, they will portray themselves as a different face.
Wow.
So short of probably a major earthquake coming and destroying everything, including the people who are there and their interests, and then you start growing the Congo now from underneath the rubble, I don't see how it can change. It's been like that since before independence, and independence, momentous as it was, didn't change much.
Wow. Wow. I understand. That's a very dark and very hopeless answer, but it does sound realistic. It does sound realistic. Thank you so much for your take on that, man. Thank you a lot for your take on that.